Hello and welcome to the Blue Tweezers channel with myself, Alan, from the channel. And good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. And we're going to be doing a scenario of GMT's Mr. President. And as usual, if you can hear me and see the board, do let me know in the chat so I know all the texts are working. And yeah, let's hope they all are. Nordic and Paul, good to see you, regulars. Thanks for popping in and having a look. Let's wait for a few people to turn up before we start. This is scenario 6, the 2020 scenario. It is a 1-year scenario, and the idea is that it's the last year of a presidential cycle of 4 years. So it's actually game turn 4 here, and the setup is as it was in 2020. And the idea to win the game, now normally in Mr. President you win on, well, you find out how well you did by the concept of legacy points, but these scenarios they have different victory conditions, and this one has well, and the idea here is to get re-elected. And that concerns a certain amount of criteria and probably a dice roll as well at the end of the game. So you may guarantee that dice roll, but only if you're doing really, really well. Okay, how are we going in the chat here? Thanks, Paul and Nordic. Good, good to know that you can all see and hear me. Brilliant. So I don't know if you know the game that well. It's a solo game, which is it's very sequential. We have a turn sequence down here. Everything is kind of in front of you, and you've got the domestic side kind of here, here-ish, and then you've got the rest of the world on this side here. You've got various tracks, and we have what's known as crisis cards. We have a crisis deck. Now that's been seeded in a certain way because of this scenario, and yeah, don't want to go spend too much time working out what we're going to do here, but suffice it to say that we will be turning over crisis cards. We'll be moving this counter, which is slightly hidden by the blue on blue kind of thing. It's a blue counter on a blue background here, but it's the current US action. It starts here on the turn sequence, and we will run all the way through this turn sequence, 4 activation phases, and then a final activation segment, which will end the game. Now, as far as other tracks goes, we have the nuclear and missile tracks for North Korea and Iran up here, which they are on their starting places. It's a progression 1 to 5. They're both on 2. We have the strategic capabilities tracks here, which is a competition between ourselves, the Russian Federation, and the People's Republic of China here. We then have conflict tracks down here, which is the various most likely major conflicts that are likely to come in here. India, China, India, Pakistan, Russia, NATO, Russia, Ukraine, China, Japan, the 2 Koreas, Israel, Iran, again, Israel and its neighbours, that's the Gulf states of Saudi Arabia against Iran and the United States against Iran here. So these are the various tracks here, which the status, if that gets down to the bottom of the track, then things will kick off. Here we have start of the domestic stuff here. So this is Congress here, and the way we're viewed by various elements. So here we have a Congress here, which is currently split, party control. We have some friends and some opponents here in Congress, and we have no cooperation. It's contentious at the moment. Nobody's talking to each other. We have the legislation area, which is kind of ready to go here. Nothing much happening at the moment. And we have these tracks here, one of which is very important. World opinion of the US here, and as you can see, they don't think much of us. We're down at 3. Relations with Congress, again, don't think much of us, down at 3. Media relations, now this is critical to the victory, and again, they hate us. It's down at 3. Homeland security at 6, which is kind of starter area. The economy is doing great, so we have an improving economy at the top of the chart, so that's as good as the economy can do. In here we have all the presidential organisation here, the cabinets, cabinet effectiveness, which is not great. Relations with the party, which is great, and that helps us again on the victory roll, or potentially we don't get a penalty. Up at the top here we have the cabinet. We have the president here, which we've got 2 attributes. So we get +3 public approval per turn. That's incredibly useful for us, as we are likable and we are an orator. So we've got -2 for the State of the Union dice roll, which will happen during the turn. We have our cabinet officials. We have vice president here, which has they have a bonus action but no modifiers which are relevant, because that's he's got 0 for domestic and 2 for defence, but he's not a defence secretary. We have the chief of staff, which is quite good, a +1 action again. We have the Secretary of State, which again isn't brilliant, but it's the best we picked out, and the Secretary of Defence, which is useful. We have public legislative priorities, what the public are saying they want, and we had to put in what's known as the lingering domestic issue as the #1 priority. We have our own priorities which we can set ourselves, and we've matched that with our top priority here. Normally there is a campaign promise, but in this scenario we don't do that. And we have the cabinet here, and we will set our focuses for the cabinet for the turn as we go through. Last thing we have is a scandal track, and we start with a scandal, a concluding scandal for the president, for us. So that's bad news. Let's see how bad it is as we go through the turn. Then over here we have the various areas of the globe. That's the United States there, or North America really. And then various areas. 2 important ones are the Russian Federation here and the People's Republic of China, which have special capabilities, and they can make us lose the game automatically, never mind what we think at home. The Chinese are doing very well. They have 8 influence. If they ever get to 15, they will win the game and we will lose. And if the Russians are on 4th, they get to 9, again we will lose and they will win the game. I don't want to go too much into these. The only thing I would say is this is what's known as the lingering domestic issues track. We're on 2 lingering domestic issues, and that's our priority, is to try and get rid of a lingering domestic issue here. They tend to hang about and produce problems with us. Anything else particularly going on at the moment? We have a lot of sanctions on North Korea at the moment, UN sanctions, multilateral sanctions and US sanctions on them. The Iranians have a lot of influence in the Middle East. There's a lot of Chinese influence around the globe, particularly in the Eurozone. There's a lot going on there. And the Russians and the Republic don't think much of us at the moment. On our relations tracks up at the top here, we're on 2 out of 5, which is not great. What else? The Koreans aren't, the South Koreans aren't completely friendly with us, neither are the Australians and neither are the Canadians. So, well, there we go. Right, so I don't want to explain any more than that. Just last thing, which is the Prestige and AP's track, AP's action points track. So we start with 15 action points for the turn, and our Prestige is 6. Our public approval here is currently on 42. It should start on 44, but some nasty stuff has already happened before we even start the game, and that shifted down to 42. On the dice roll for winning the game, it's a combination of adding the media relations number with the small number on the public approval area, and also adding the prestige. So currently we are on 5, 11, 14. So that gives us a toss-up. We might win, we might not win. So we need to improve these things if we can. And of course the game is going to try and reduce these as well. And naturally there's a sort of entropy here where things will naturally get worse unless we bump everything up. So just checking the chat here. Oh, we're talking about weather. Okay. Right. Yes, everybody's getting themselves familiar with each other. So cool. Yep. Knock yourselves out. I'll just play a game. So we do have some crisis events which have already happened. They're known as cascading events, and these effectively can reoccur and they get worse and worse. Currently we had some police shootings, which is a special that had to be included in this scenario, and we've already had that happen once. We have China pushing territorial claims in the South China Sea. That's happened once. And then also major Mexican cartel has expanded violence in Mexico and US border states. So these things have already happened and they could come back. There is also within the crisis deck here, there will be a card for the pandemic. And when that happens, there are some special rules which add to the card to make it even worse. So all good news, all good news. But let's start where we're supposed to start. And we are meant to start on what's known as improved strategic capabilities. Now, one thing that's really useful in this game, if you don't have the game, and this is a flip chart book. Try and find the front of it. Turn sequence flip book it's called, and it pretty much takes you through a turn and tells you what to do. It's not absolutely everything in here, but most things there are, and it also tells you the rulebook sections as well if you want to get more details. So we are supposed to start with the improved strategic capabilities. So that's these guys over here. Okay, so the first thing we need to check is what is the state of the economy? Is it 5 or higher? And it is, it's on 7. This means we can get 2 rolls on these tracks, 2 different tracks. Now for we roll a d10 for each of them. You can see the dice, hopefully. Yep, just about. And we will on a 1 to 5. We will get an increase in strategic capabilities. By the way, what I'm hoping to do here is to run an activation sequence, activation phase sequence on each of the videos. So this should be a sequence, and kind of cleaned the diary. So this should be fairly rapid. Hopefully, you know, in 4 successive days. That's something to look forward to. Okay. So, what are we going to pick? Well, the one where we're behind on, which is always a problem, well, we're not actually behind, is cyber warfare. And that's always something in this game that the Chinese and the Russians will try and do to us. So we want to improve this. We're both on the 1 chart, and it's kind of a relative thing. So 1 is no worse than 7, unless somebody else is at 7 and you're at 1, in which case you're at a disadvantage. It's a race kind of thing. So we'll certainly do that one. The other one that's really significant usually is strategic recon intel gathering, this one, which we're quite far ahead. So maybe we don't need to improve this. Space warfare, we're behind. We could look at that. But certainly cyber warfare is the one we've got to concentrate on. So okay, so one thing we do get is we get the military rating of the Defence Secretary, which is the third number here. So it's domestic, foreign and defence. So 001, he's got a, so we get a -1 on the dice to get a 1 to 5, 0s are a 10, and let's see if we get an improvement in cyber warfare. A 3, we do. 3 minus 1, 2. That's between 1 and 5, so we go ahead in the cyber warfare, and that's really useful to keep the Russians and the Chinese at bay. That's one roll. We've got another roll. Let's do space warfare because we're behind. So again, a -1 for the Defence Secretary. An 8 going to a 7, that's not good enough. So yeah, we don't get that. But the cyber warfare one I'm really happy about. That's very, very important. So next we move on to set President of the US / Cabinet focus. This is deciding on here. So where do we get the focus here? We've got 6 counters which match the 6 areas here. Improve relations with Congress, economy, homeland security, public press relations, address domestic crises, and cabinet effectiveness. So what are we worried about here? Well, press and public relations, because the media relations is important here. That's important. Address domestic crises is important because we're trying to get rid of the lingering domestic crisis. And cabinet effectiveness is always useful because we roll against that a lot to actually get things done. Homeland security, not that fussed about. We're on 6. It's cool. It's fine. Economy's doing really well. We don't have to focus on that. Improving relations with Congress would be nice, though probably less than those other 3. So we put our focus. So I'm going to put focus number 1 on public press relations. I'm going to put 2 on domestic crises. 3 is the cabinet effectiveness. That should actually go there. And then the others, improve relations with Congress is the next one. Economy and homeland security, well, we'll put it that way. And so that's our cabinet focus done. We start with no tensions counters. Tension counters here affect our ability to use this focus, but there aren't any there, so that's fine. Right, so and how are we going in the chat here? Just checking again. The game scares you, Christoph. Yeah, it does look overwhelming, but really this book is excellent. It just takes you through the whole thing, and there's only a few other things which this doesn't cover. Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff to it, but it's very sequential. So you can really just ride this book and just go through the turn sequence and kind of see what happens. There's lots of decisions to make, though. It's not like an automatic thing that just rushes through. We're just about to come to that as well. Getting a headache. Well, again, you can play it and come back and play it and come back. It can just sit there. Probably the biggest headache here is it's actually kind of an awkward size. So it's kind of long and thin. So it's your standard sort of, what is it, 22 inches or whatever like that. But it's 2 boards. This is, there's actually a line here. This is one board and this is the other board. So it's actually a little bit awkward. And also you do have another chart which is off the side here, which is the war chart, which there are no wars at the moment. That's why I've got stuffed it in the corner, because it's not relevant. It might become relevant, but at the moment it doesn't. And there's a sort of chit holding area here as well, which is on a card. So it's a little awkward, and I've been able to get a bigger table into my gaming space here, which has allowed me to do this. Every time I've done this, in the past, except for a convention go with it, with a mate of mine, where we kind of shared the responsibilities. I was domestic, he was foreign affairs. I've had to do on Vassal because I couldn't really fit it on my gaming table. Now I can, so I thought, let's go for it. Yeah, yeah, terrifies you and you love OCS. OCS kind of terrifies me more than this, I must admit here. Good, right, what are we moving on to? So next, after we've done the focus, is the one action for the president and each cabinet member. So here we have, that's us and each of the cabinet members here. So now, two of our guys here, so the vice president and the chief of staff, they actually have +1 action. So they actually get 2 here. We have 1 presidential action, so 2 vice president actions, 2 chief of staff actions, 1 secretary of state and 1 secretary for defence. Okay, so and what can you do with these actions? So to get it a little bit more confusing, we put our flip chart away and we have these 4 charts here. So there are presidential actions, domestic actions, diplomatic actions, foreign affairs, and military actions. So these are used, and they're also on the back as well. So there's quite a few things you can do, and effectively what they are is they're a dice roll with modifiers. You decide to do a certain thing, you might spend an action point, you roll a dice and you check the result on the areas here. So let's do the president first. So the president can do actions on all 3 areas. So your domestic, your foreign affairs and your military. So that it's got 3 sections here. Well, actually 2 sections and an any. So on domestic, we have presidential presence. Now, I think we might like to do this because it improves our public approval and our media relations. Okay, so yeah. We also have what's known as the orator capability, which is here. That gives us a modifier here. So I'm going to do the presidential presence as basically going to talk to everybody and say everybody's, you know, really impressed with us. So it costs an action. We can spend an action point, and I think we will. So that goes down to 14. Now we make a presidential prestige check. So on D10, we roll against our prestige, and our prestige is 6. So, and we have a -1 if I'm a orator, and I am, and -1 if I spent an action point, which I did. So we've got a -2 on the dice on the prestige check. So let's roll the dice, and we want as low as possible with the -2. A 5 -2 is a 3. So a 3 is less than 6, so it's a pass. It's a pass, but it's greater than a 1. So we rolled a 3 effectively. So +2 public approval or +1 with media relations. I think I'd like to put media relations up. The reason being is that with media relations, when it's bad, it automatically gets worse. So if we can bump it up to sort of middling, it's going to at least hold for us. Whereas public approval, if we increase it, it doesn't actually help with that. If we bring it up to 46 here, that would still give us only 5 points for the end of the game. So improve the media relations. So that's a success. So we've done the president's action. Now we move on to the vice president. Now the vice president can only do domestic actions. So this chart here. So what can we do? We can do party fundraising and support. Now party is important. We really would like it 6 or better. It's currently at 7, so that's not a priority. We can track a terror target on the continental United States. So we do have terror units here, and I think we would probably want to do something about those terror groups, because they could turn nasty and start doing some nasty stuff, and that's going to affect public approval and lots of other things. So that's certainly one. We could raid them. We can't raid them at the moment because they are not targeted. We could remove a tensions counter from here. We don't have any. We can encourage the bipartisanship in Congress, so we can try and start to get Congress to actually talk to each other. We can discredit or dissuade a congressional opponent, so we can try and rubbish these opponents here. Possible. We can attempt to stimulate the economy. It's as good as it's going to get. That's good. Address domestic crisis. Now this is useful. This is useful. I think we would use the Chief of Staff on that because he actually gets a modifier. So we'll wait with that. The rest of a lingering domestic issue. So we'd like to do that. Problem is there's a kind of gateway here. We have 2 domestic crises already here, and we have to have that at 0 before we can address these guys. So we can't actually do a lingering one yet. We'd have to address the domestic crisis first. And then finally we can improve relations with Congress. So I think the priorities are address a domestic crisis and track the terror target in the continental US here, I think. Okay. So I think I'll get the Vice President. He gets 2 actions. We're going to do a track terror target in US. So it costs an action, doesn't cost us an action point. So we choose one of these groups. We have 2 level 2s and 1 level 1. The higher the level, the worse they are. Choose a terror group and make a Homeland Security track check. So our Homeland Security is currently 6. So we roll against 6. A 9, it's a failure. So with a failure, we get no effect. Okay, so that's the Vice President's first thing they do. Let's now move on to... we can do that again. Some things you can only do once in an activation phase, but you can do that again. But I'd like to address the domestic crisis as well. So let's do that. Okay, so it's cabinet effectiveness check. Now that's only a 4. Not great. So that's more difficult to do. Right. Does address domestic crisis, is our priority, number 1 priority? It actually isn't. So we don't get a modifier for that. Do we have a domestic focus on our attributes? No, we don't. Is public approval 60% or higher? No, it's on 42. And what's the domestic rating of the Vice President? Is a 0, so that doesn't help. And it's plus the current lingering domestic issue, that's 2. So we have to roll a 4 with +2 on the dice. This is not very likely. Is this worth a try? I think maybe we need to leave it to the Chief of Staff here. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the track the terror target again. Pick the other number 2 terror group here. That was on a 6. It's much more likely to happen. A 1, yes. So we get to track the terror target. Move the terror group 1 box to the right on the intel track, or into the gathering box if it wasn't on the track already. So this then moves. This is the intel track here. Gathering, locating, targeting. Either locating and targeting, we can actually do something about them. Gathering is just we've spotted them and we're gathering intelligence. So that's the Vice President done. That's his 2. On to the Chief of Staff. Just checking the old chat here, how everything's going. Ah, okay. Again, talking amongst yourselves, that's fun. Something about deer. Okay. Oh dear. Chief of Staff. So he gets a modifier here. So I want to get these domestic crisis is sorted. So I'm going to focus on this. So it's an action. Cabinet effectiveness check is a 4. He has a -1, but we have a +2 from the domestic issue. So we need a 4, but we've got +1 on the dice. A 6 is not good enough. So we'll do that again for his second action. Here's hoping. 5 +1 is 6 is not good enough. So he fails. I should sack him. Okay, well that's done. We're on to Secretary of State, who's not actually very good. He's got a 0 modifier for the diplomatic actions. These are diplomatic actions. So we have crisis relief. So this is the same as the domestic crisis, is trying to reduce these tracks. Attempt to improve a region's alignment. There's a marker, dark blue, well, sort of bright blue marker on these, which is what the region thinks of us, and the higher the better. We can remove a Chinese or Russian influence counter. We can only do that once. We can make a trade agreement. Okay, so we can try and do that. That helps lots of things. Decrease tensions, so you can remove tensions. Now these little crimson counters here, tensions counters, which we can try and remove. We'll turn them over and see how bad they are. They're effectively kind of a modifier. When's relevant about the globe, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see which where we want to decrease the tensions. We've got 3 in Russia. We got 2 in Britain and NATO, 2 in Israel, 2 in Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, 2 in India, 2 in China, and 2 in North Korea. So there's a bit of tension around here. We can do a summit with China or Russia to improve the relations. Attempt to impose sanctions, so we can sanction somebody. We can de-escalate a conflict. There are no conflicts, so that's not really. Broker off a peace, so that's bringing a war to end. There are no wars, but there are civil wars, these purple counters, and we can try and make them get us either a ceasefire or to produce peace. It's we've got the UN that's going to do some of this stuff later in the turn, so I think we'll probably leave that. So maybe remove an influence counter, maybe crisis relief. Yeah. So where do we have real problems on the crises? So we've got a level 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. So I've got lots of level 2s. 3 is when it goes up. If it goes beyond 3, then bad things happen. Effectively, the place explodes and you get a major crisis. Thinking about this. Okay, we can only remove an influence counter if it's a 7 or an 8 alignment area, in which none of them are 7 or 8. If it's a 6 area and the crises are 0, then we can do it as well. And again, there's nowhere there, so we can't remove any influence counters. Crisis relief, we only have 1. And probably the important one here is, I think, in the Eurozone actually. If we can get this down to 0, that may help. We've got terror groups in unstable state, lots of influence here. Yeah, we're not on the regional alignments of 6 though. Yeah, Middle East. We'll go for the Middle East here. Right, so crisis relief. So we choose a region and roll a d10. We want low. Diplomatic rating of our Secretary of State is 0, so it doesn't help. Is the regional stability 6 or higher? No, it's not. It's only a 5. So it's a straight roll. Looking for a 1 to 6 really here. A 9 is really bad. No, it's not actually. A 10 is really bad. A 9 is no effect. So, not very good. Secretary of State doesn't have any effect. Finally, Secretary of Defence with the modifier. We can do some military actions. So we can request rapid capabilities. That's over here. As we've got one turn, I'm not sure that's very useful. We don't really go back to that. Intel gathering. We can do that against 2 groups. Has to be in, I believe they have to be in the same place. Oh no, they don't. We can move military forces. These are the forces here on these lines here. We have some spare in the US here. We can move them about if we want to. Not sure we do. And we can raid or strike a terror group. Again, we'll need them up on the intel tracks. Nobody's there at the moment. We can do arms sales, resupply, or training with an ally. That's to try and get them more on our side. And maybe initiate hostilities. I don't think we want to do that at the moment. Or make a cyber attack. Again, I don't think we want to really do that. And then treat disease, build schools and clinics. So this is doing the sort of peacekeeping sort of military role here. I think we'll do some intel here. 2 groups. This is the guy that worries me here. In South Asia, we got a terror group level 3. I think we need to deal with him. So we're going to pick him and also one of the terror groups here. It's the level 2 terror group here. So, gathering intel. Cost an action. For each terror group, roll a d10. 1 to 4 is a success. Do we have intel or advisors counter in the region? So we have intel and advisor counter here, and we have one here. So we get -1 for both of those rolled. Is there a focused national intelligence counter in the region? There is not. Our focused national intelligence is in Eastern Europe, and we have a second one somewhere over in the Asia Pacific. So maybe we shouldn't do this level 2. Maybe we should do those are level 1s. So level 2 here, we'll do this guy instead. So level 3 terror group here. We have my intel advisors there as well. So -1 for this chap. And we're looking for 1 to 4. 5 -1 is a 4. So yeah, we get to move it 1 box. So as it's not in a box, this goes to gathering. Over here we have a -2 because we have the advisors and we also have the focused national intel. A 1, yeah, that'll do. So 1's no better than anything else. We just get to move him up to the gathering. Good. And he gets 1 action, so that's our actions done. We are going to move on into activation phase 1. And the first one is Russia or China acts. Right, how are we doing here? It might be that I'm actually boring you guys. I thought we got Mike. Mike's on. Hello. And Mike, of course, is... I'm hiding it here. But he is actually the game developer. So well done, Mike. Yeah, good game. Good game. Yeah, good to see you at the... I'm not sure if I'm missing Christoph. I think I said hi. If not, hello. And... I'm not boring you. I might be boring the others. I don't know. Anyway, you're chatting away, quite happy to yourselves. Yes, all very good to see. Right. Okay, we're going on to Russia and China Act. So one of them will act. We don't know which one. We have to do a roll. It's 1 to 5 Russia, 6 to 10 China. So it's a 4, so it is the Russians acting. So we put our Russia acted marker on that spot. So China is still to act. It will activate in activation phase 3. And so we now have to switch to a different booklet, which is the Russia booklet. There's lots of booklets in this game. Let me find it. It's usually quite easy to find because it actually has the flag on the front of it. So, Russia acts. First thing it says is it may seem complex, but it's not. So, yeah. Okay, first thing is, has Russia won the game? So, it needs to have a base in Eastern Europe. It doesn't. A base is 3 influence counters. Does it have 9 or more Russian influence counters on the map? No, it only has 4. And is either Eurozone stability less than 5? Stability is 5. And the UK have ally relations with the US worse than very close. No, they are very close. So none of those are true, so therefore it's not an automatic loss. Okay. Posture changes and results. So begin. Are we changing the posture? So the posture is a special thing for China and the Russian Federation. There's 2 settings, 1 and 2. 1, they are not doing too much that's active. 2 is they are doing things that are active. So the posture is currently 2. It starts at 2 for the Russians. So we run through here. It's currently posture 2. The sum of the flipped tension counters. So these 3 tension counters over here we turn over. It's +1, +1, and +1. So it's 3. So it's not 0 to 1. If it's posture +2 and the sum is 5 to 9, no, it's 3. If it's +2 and it's +10, no. So none of those are relevant. Okay, so nothing good or bad particularly happens. Based on the sum of the tensions value, the relationship with the ES may be affected. Okay, the sum of the counters, it's not 0 or 1. For every increment of 5, place 1 trending anti-US counter. Okay, so there is only 3, so that's not a lot of 5, so nothing changes. They effectively sit there, currently then 2, and they also trending down to level 1. So if you like, those trending counters gives you kind of a double move concept. So if you don't have the trending counter and it goes down, you put a trending counter. If you already have a trending counter that's going to go down and it goes down again, you take the trending counter on and you move the main marker down. So it's a sort of it slows you to double speed, sort of half speed maneuver on here. So nothing moved in there. So Russia's strategic capabilities. It's at posture 2, so we make 3 capabilities rolls. Okay, and according to the priorities below. All right. At posture 2, it's a 1 to 5. They increase their capability. So areas in which Russia trails by US by 2 or more boxes. So is there any of those? So strategic recon, definitely. Naval forces, definitely. Those are the 2. So those would be the priority. Okay, so that's the first thing we do. So 1 to 5, we'll do the naval forces first. A 7, they fail. And the strategic recon, intel gathering, a 9, they fail for that as well. It's nice to know. They have 1 left. If you have 2 or more actions left, no, we don't. We only have 1. Only 1 action remains. Choose either cyber warfare or strategic missiles defense. So choose them randomly. So we'll have cyber warfare odd, strategic missiles even. That's odd, so it's cyber warfare. 1 to 5 to increase. 10, missed again. So okay, no strategic capabilities done here. They've completely forgotten all that. Right, how are we going here? Eric, hello, good to see you. Organisation is your friend in this game. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, excuse you, Nordic. We won't wait for you. We'll just carry on. You need a long-term vision in the game. Yeah, we're only playing the one-turn scenario, so it's kind of difficult to have that long-term vision. But on the main game, which is 4 game turns, 4 way through here, yes, there is certainly a long-term vision idea. Yes, anyway, right, strategic capabilities done. So here we are, espionage. Is the Russia relations 1 or 2? Yes, it is. It's on 2. And the posture is 2. They make 2 espionage attempts to steal something from the US or its allies. So we roll a d10 on this chart here and try and find out what they do. So we have some DRMs. Is Russian cyber warfare capability higher or is it lower? So we're higher and we are 1 higher, so that gives a +1 on this dice. We have no estranged allies. If the US ally relationship with any ally except India and Gulf states is not very close, well, Canada is only close, Australia is only close, and Korea is only. So yeah, there's a -1 on that. So they cancel each other out. And are there any DRM counters on Russia? There are not. So, okay. So it cancels each other out. So there's just a straight roll. And here we go. So 2 rolls here. 2 attempts. An 8. An 8 is a failure, no effect. And they're not doing very well so far this turn. And the second roll, a 9. And that's a failure as well. So, yeah, no espionage capabilities. It can get worse for them because we can effectively intervene if necessary. But yeah, they failed. Okay, next is improve the economy. So the economy here currently is 4. It's in stagnation. We roll a d10, and what about sanctions? So there are unilateral and multilateral sanctions. So that's a +1 and a +3. So it's +4 on the dice. How many counters are in the Eurozone, Eastern Europe, or Central South Asia? So 1 in Central South Asia, 1 in Eastern Europe, 1 in Eurozone. So -1 per those. So it's now only +1. And the Russians' relationship with the US is fine. So currently is a +1 on the dice. 10. Oh God, they're rolling really badly, the Russians here. So a 9+. Place a worsening economy counter on Russia. They place extra focus on the internal situation and economic inadequacies. Reduce Russia's actions by 1 AP. So we take a AP action counter. Ah, there it is. So it's a -1 AP action. So their activity, which they're about to do, they're going to actually lose an action point, and we need a worsening economy counter here. So effectively a kind of like 3.5 on that, which is terrible for them, really. Okay, how are we doing here? Oh, Mike, you're trading your game. Oh, roll low, bleed tweezer. No, we want to roll high when we're talking about Russians here. Okay, calculate the number of actions. So, receives the number of actions equal to the current value of their state of the economy, which is 4 +1, so 5. And then we look at the relations with the US, which is on 2. That gives them a +1, so it's 4, 5, 6. We have a -1 AP here, which we lose. Let's take it back to 5. If we rolled a 9+, subtract 1 from the total number, so we also get a -1 as well. So that was 4, 5, 6, 5, 4. So 4 actions. So we then go through, there's a whole list of actions which you go through starting at the front until you run out of actions. So, right. So, cover terror in Central South Asia. Are there 5 total terror group levels in Central South Asia? No, there's only... Oh, yeah, there is. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. Use 1 Russian action to remove a terror level from the largest group in the region. Oh, nice. Okay, so the Russians reduce that to a 2. Well, thank you, Russia, for doing that. And that uses 1 of their actions. They've only got 3 left. Okay, quell a rising internal dissent. So you roll a d10, adding 1 if the Russian posture is 2. So +1 on the dice, so it's a d10. An 8 goes to a 9. No effect. No, it doesn't cost an action. Okay. Is Russia at war? No, it's not. So we ignore that. Possible Syrian intervention. Okay, skip these action if is there no civil war markers in the Middle East? There is a civil war marker. Russia already has 3 influence markers or a base in the Middle East. It does not. US regional alignment in the Middle East is 8. No, it's not. It's 6. So we don't skip this action. Otherwise, Russia intervenes or sends reinforcements in the Syrian civil war. Place Russian influence counters and adjust Russia's relations with the EU according to the current US regional alignment. So the US regional alignment is 6. So on 6, you place 1 Russia influence marker and a trending anti-US marker on the relations. So we get a Russian influence marker, puts them up to 5, and we go anti-US here, which actually drops them down to 1. They are now Cold War adversaries. Great. Okay, so there's no rogue state, so nothing happens there. So that's the second one done. We had 4, didn't we? So we've used 1 for the terror and 1 for the Syrian intervention. So we've got 2 left. Okay, so let's carry on. Remain in action hierarchy. So we do 1 of these once as we go through. So a cyber attack, an online disinformation campaign to disrupt, weaken and confuse. So 1 action gives us 2 attacks or 3 attacks if posture 2. We are, we're going to do 3 of these. For each attack, roll a d10, the target, and a d10 for the chart. So I don't believe there's any, no, there are no modifiers to this. So d10 for the targets, this is the first attack. Let's just put 3 on there so we know how many we've done here. So the target is an 8. An 8 is US relationship with European allies. So yeah, let's see if it succeeds. So our cyber strategic capability is better than theirs. I told you this was important. Yeah, so we're on the bottom chart here. So they can't get a major success. Let's see how we go. A 5 is a success though. So success decreases the NATO ally relationship by 1 level. If possible, otherwise decrease UK allies. So NATO is no longer very close. It's only close. Okay, second attack. Target is 6. 6 is EU cohesion. Roll. We want 6 or more here for them to fail. The 7 they fail. And the third one, target is 9, is Eastern European democracies. And we roll to see the success of this. A 3 is a success. Adds a Russian influence counter in Eastern Europe. So another one here. So cracking on there. So that was a 3. We've only got one action left, I think, for them. So we move on. Initiate multi-domain, low-intensity grey zone attacks to expand Russia's influence in neighbouring regions. Okay. Any region have 3 or more Russian influence counters? No. There's 2s, but no 3s. Make 1 roll on the first region specified in the following conditions. Tend to expand Russian influence in Eastern Europe. If there are 0 to 1 Russian influence counters and no base, or 2 influence counters and no base, and 3 influence counters or base in the Eurozone. So there are 2 influence counters here, but there isn't 3 plus in the Eurozone. So no, they won't do that. Oh, one or the other. Yeah, neither of those apply. Expand Russian influence in the Eurozone if there is less than 3 influence counters and no base in the Eurozone. Yes. Okay. So we're going to try and put more influence into the Eurozone. Roll a d10 and add the selected region's US regional alignment. So the regional alignment is a 5. So +5 on the dice. And roll that. A 1 plus a 5 is a 6. And 6. On the result of 10 or less, place an influence counter in the region. So, wow. Spreading their influence quite a bit here. So that's second Russian influence. And they're getting, wow, not far off the 9 here. And that's the last action. So we've done the Russia acts here. How are we doing with our chat? Oh, Mike seems to be actually answering a lot of questions, so I'll leave him to it. And we'll move on here. Any 3 actions. So we don't get the +1 actions from our people here, but we do get sort of a free hand with our combined 4 sheets here. So so I'm going to do this presidential presence again, and I'm going to use an AP because I want this media relations a lot better here. So 1 action, optional cost of 1 AP for a die roll modifier. So presidential prestige check of 6, -1 because he's a narrator, and -1 if you spent 1 AP. So -2 on the dice, and we're looking for 6 or less, or 1 would be good. 6 or less. 6 -2 is a 4. That's less than 6. +2 public approval, or +1 media relations. Yeah, let's get that ramping up. That's 1 action. Okay, what else do we want to do here? We've got these domestic crises which you need to deal with. So I'm going to get the Chief of Staff, who has a modifier, to deal with domestic crises here. So, domestic actions. Address of domestic crisis. Cabinet effectiveness check of 4. We have a -2 for the lingering domestic issues track, and +1 for the, -1 for the Chief of Staff's domestic rating. So +1 on the dice, and we need a 4. Nope, failed. And I think we'll do that again for our 3rd action. I think this is important. A 5 +1, 6. Nope, failed again. We haven't got a 10 or high, which is great. That would make everything worse, but yeah, oh well. Let's move on. Draw 1 chit. Okay, so now things start happening. So done that wrong. Yeah, these in the wrong place. So this is our crisis chit. Little tub. So there are various things here. A few of them are good. What's also here is both a Russia and a China extra action chit as well. We don't want one of those. So what are we going to pick? So pick one chit. So let's pick one chit. So it says draw 2 crisis cards, and it's got a plus on it. So we put that there. Now normally the plus, well actually in this case it is, these are 2 extra spaces, which if you get a plus you'll actually go down to the next space, otherwise we'd skip those. We've got a plus here, so we will be drawing again. So 2 crisis cards, and this is our deck in the corner here, our deck of woe. So what have we got first? We have Congress wants to expand trade and tourism ties with Cuba amidst party and public disagreements. Okay, this is an event, and we deal with it and then we discard it so it doesn't come back. Right. Immediate. Roll a d6. 1 to 3, your party wants to expand. Then choose A or B, or they want to restrict. So let's roll a d6. 6. Your party wants to restrict ties. Okay. Restrict ties with Cuba. +2 or -2 to party relations, depending whether your party agrees with you. So, okay. Bit confused on this because I rolled 4 to 6. Your party wants to restrict ties. Okay, so if I agree with my party and they want to restrict ties, I will get a boost in my party relations, but I will lose relations with Congress, which is in the toilet at the moment. But if I don't agree with them, I lose 2 party relations, and I can't do that at the moment because we're just about to go to an election. So I'm going to have to agree with them. So this goes up. So that will actually go up to 8. However, we will lose relation with Congress, which goes from 3 to 2. So Congress absolutely despises me. So we roll a d6 and see what happens. A 5. Place a trending anti-US counter in Central America. So currently it already has that counter. So that means the regional alignment goes away. It goes down. Brilliant. And that's a discarded card. There's a little D in the corner. So we don't need that anymore. So that's first card. We are drawing 2 cards here. So, mass corruption in Eastern European governments gives rise to mafia, terror and chaos. Again, discarded event. So immediately, -1 stability to Eastern Europe. Oh, brilliant. Oh gosh, that's down to 3. That's really bad. Roll a d10. A 1. A 1. +1 regional crisis in Eastern Europe, and place a 1 level 1 terror group there. So that goes up to 3, and we put in a terror group, level 1 terror group there. So we've now got 3 terror groups here. Could be worse, but gosh. Right, so we've done that chit. We move on to the if plus draw again. So we draw another chit out of the Cup of Doom. Not all Doom, but mostly Doom. Okay, and this is draw 3 cards, but no plus. Okay, so we have to draw another 3 of these cards, but at least that ends the sequence. Next card. Right, Boko Haram terrorizes Nigeria and neighbours. This is a terrorism event, so it will come back. So when it first happens, increase a level 3, 2 or 1 terror group in that priority order in Africa by 1 level. We have a 2, which will now become a 3. So it's Boko Haram. Plus 1 regional crisis in Africa. So that goes up to a 3. So Africa and Eastern Europe are in big trouble here. That's all that happens the first time through. Okay, but we put that into the 2-part, I think. Yeah, 2 deck. Okay, next card. We've got 3 cards to do here. Right. Oh, brilliant. Renewed fighting in the Balkans. Russians back Serbs. Of course they do. Plus 1 regional crisis in Eastern Europe. Oh dear, that turns into a major crisis here. So, with a major crisis, we immediately have to refer to our little crisis charts. World charts. So, world regional major crisis is chart WD1. WD1, here we go. Okay. Oh, you know what? Yeah, so I've got 2 cards up here, which is effectively exceptional White House resources. Haven't really talked about them there, but they do have capability. So I have a superstar on the NSC staff, and then I also have a talented and beloved First Lady. Okay, so right, so with this guy, I have a once per game you may ignore, discard 1 revealed terrorism event card. So I could have chucked away that Boko Haram card. Is it really that much of a problem? Okay, I'll keep this in reserve. I won't use it on it. Anyway, back to where we were. Russians backing the Serbs. So we have a major crisis in Eastern Europe. So we roll a d10 and we got modifiers. What's our regional stability? Our regional stability is in the toilet here. It's 3. So that's plus 2 on the dice. Is there a very close US ally there? No, there is not. Is there a civil war there? There was a ceasefire civil war, so no. Is there another war other than civil war in the region? No. Is there a rogue state? No, there's an unstable state, but no rogue state. So it's plus 2 on the dice, and we roll on this chart here. D10. 7. Oh, God. Goes to a 9. 9. Decrease regional stability 1 box. We can't. If there is a US ally in the region, decrease its relationship. We don't have one. Place trending anti-US counter in the region. So, and there is also a possible refugee crisis. So, so trending anti-US here, that gets rid of that. And we're trending anti-US. No, it's stability. I'm not sure what happens if we go off the end of the regional stability here. I might have to look that up. Let's have a quick look. Regional stability 28. This is the rule book here. I don't think anything particularly happens. Yeah, it's in the toilet. It's in the toilet. So, Yeah, I can't say anything about something worse happening. So there you go. Right, so we kind of got away with that, but not really. Extra terror group, fine. Then we roll a D10. What happens with the crisis market? Drops by 2 once the major crisis is over. Oh, we did have the possible refugee. Okay, refugee crisis is here. If the region is Eastern Europe, it is. A flood of refugees fleeing to Southern and Western Europe. Make a stability check for the Eurozone. Stability is 5. So we just do a straight roll for that. An 8, it's a fail. +1 to Eurozone regional crisis. And place a worsening economy marker. It's all kicking off here, isn't it? Okay, and that's it. Okay, right, roll a d10 here for this crisis card. 9, usually the bigger number is bad. Let's see, 9 plus. Russia sends freedom fighters to Serbia. If there are 2+ Russian influence in East Europe, yes there is. Replace 2 influence with 1 Russia base and place 2 tension counters on NATO and Russia. Right, so that comes off and it gets replaced by a base, which ups that again, and then 2 tensions counters on NATO and Russia. So this is our tensions counter. Oh, we should have removed these and replaced it with 2 more anyway, so you half round up, I believe. So 2 tensions counters should be there already, and then we add 2 more. I'll actually put these ones back first. So that's 4 there. And then 2 more on NATO. NATO has 2 already. So that's 1. And, oops, oh, I saw that one. 2. Okay. Then, increase Russia-NATO conflict track by 2 boxes. Oh, bloody hell. So, conflict goes to 4. Okay, this is really bad. Russia-NATO, if it gets to 5, that's end of game, because it's a big red value here, and we've currently gone from 2 to 4. I have had this before, actually. It's a discard, at least. It's not coming back. I have had successive cards just completely wipe out the Russia-NATO status and end of game. We've still got 1 card to go, so this might happen now. So let's look at this. Oh, you're kidding me. Okay, Russian attack sub forced to surface in Canadian waters. Discard event. Place 2 tension counters on Russia and Canada. This is just going from bad to worse, isn't it? So these are on Canada, which already had 1, and 2 more tensions counters in Russia. At least they've pretty much had their turn for the turn, so we may not have to worry about it until after the re-election. Okay, roll a d10 and add value of the Russia-NATO track to the result. Russia-NATO track is 4, so d10 plus 4. 4 plus 4 is an 8. 8. Canada returns sub and crew after brief detention. Remove 1 tension counter from both. Okay. So, okay. All right, phew. And this is a discard event. So. Right, that's the 3, and we don't draw again. So we move on to Ally Rogue Group Acts. So, one of these 4 counters represents a group of countries around the world. Mostly good and 1 bad. So we'll just go through them and flip them over and put them up on the charts. So we have Group A. So Group A is going to activate. Let me just get the relevant. So this is the Ally and Rogue States set of charts. Yeah, you're getting even more intimidated by this game at the moment, aren't you? So, Group A, that consists of EU, NATO, Republic of Korea, and Iran. So we run basically all the way through this. So we start with NATO. Okay, sorry, EU. So perform European Union procedure to update in economic changes. So world economic trend, roll a D10. A 7. A 7, slow growth, no change. Okay. Then roll D10 for the Eurozone. Eurozone stability is currently 5, so there's no modifier. So just a D10. 7. Low interest loans, -1 to Eurozone regional crisis. Okay, so it goes down by 1. That's good. Right, that's the European EU done. On to activate NATO. So NATO is just a close ally, not very close. So we only have one joint action with them. Okay. Possible joint actions. Possible joint actions are Intel. We can do an auto success for Intel in Eurozone. Could be useful. We could do a. We can't do a raid because none of the terror groups have been spotted. Attempt to stabilize region. Might be nice. Reinforce. They're not at war. De-escalate. If the ally has a conflict track, attempt to decrease the status. That's a good idea. Away from war by 1 level. Can't do if it's strange. No, they are close. Roll a d10 and add 2 if they are close. So it's a +2 on the dice. So let's roll that. I think that's the thing we need to do here. An 8. 8. Add 2 is 10, is a failure. Wonderful. Okay. So that's the joint action for NATO, and you get 1. When finished, flip over all tensions counters. So these are our tensions counters. Flip them over. 1, 1, no, and 1. So that's a total of +3. Okay, make a unilateral action roll. So this, what are NATO going to do on their own? So this is this table. Per tension value on NATO is +1. So we've got +3 here. So +3 on the dice. Current conflict status of Russia and NATO, that's 4. Gosh, so this is +7. And there's no current war. So a +7 on this chart. And it only goes up to 12. Okay. +7. A 6 means a 13. Yes, it's off the chart. 12+. Perform a cyber attack versus Russia. Note, if ally relationship is not very close, ignore this result and re-roll NATO's unilateral action. Okay, so they're not very close, so they don't do that. So we re-roll. Again, +7. 3 + 7 is 10. Deploy troops. Add 2 strength to the strength forces box in any war in the Eurozone or involving the US. There is no. If none, increase relative strength with Russia on the conflict track. So currently we are on +1 Russia. So an increase would make it equal. So the relative strength is equal. Okay, great. All right. Half rounded down. So we get rid of those counters and we pick 2 new ones to put on NATO. So that's NATO done. Who we got left? We have the Republic of Korea. So Republic of Korea is only close, so we get one joint action. What do we want to do here? So we could improve the intel on this guy. We can't do a raid. Attempt to stabilise the region. It's not bad. It's a 5. No reinforce. De-escalate. Where are we with the Republic of Korea? Korea status is 2. Don't think we need to do that. Request humanitarian aid in any region. So we get the Koreans to help out somewhere for humanitarian. That might be nice, actually. Possibly in Eastern Europe. Well, Africa's pretty good as well. Yeah, maybe we'll do it in Africa. Humanitarian aid. So that's a straight roll. 1 to 8 we need. 4, that'll do. So that means that, yeah, the regional crisis goes down by 1. That's cool. Right. So we've done the 1 action. Now we do the unilateral action table for the South Koreans. And so tensions counters here. So they only have 1 tension counter, and it's worth a +2. Brilliant. So that's +2 on this table. There are 2 tension counters on North Korea, which adds another +1. And what's the conflict status value? Is 2. So half of that. So +2, +3, +4. Great. Let's see what we roll. 9. Oh God. Okay, 9 +4. Talk tough and prepare for war. Increase DPRK, RAK conflict track status by 1 box. Okay, great. So they're angry with each other now. Good-o. So, but the tension counter is replaced, half rounded down, which is 0. So that tension counter goes. Finally, we have Iran to deal with. So Iran action table. So Iran just has 1 tension on it. Okay. So that's a +1. Okay. Tensions and sanctions, there's only a +1. Israel is not currently at war with Hezbollah or Hamas. Middle East region alignment is currently 6 or higher. It is 6, so that's a +1. And is Iran at war with Israel? No. So +1 for that, +1 for the tension counter. So it's +2 on the dice. 6, 7, 8. 8. So, so the first thing, it's a blue result. So the blue result, if the result falls within the blue area, add +1 to Iran's nuke missile track and decrease APs by the number listed on the missile track. So this is the missile track. So we move to there. We lose an AP. They have now miniaturized warheads. So we lose an AP. And we add tensions, Iran, Israel, and Gulf states. That's going to disappear anyway. Iran, Israel, and Gulf states. Okay, that's just the blue result. What does this say? Reduce Middle East stability by 1 box. Oh, great. If Israel, US, or Gulf states are at war, add strength or +1 strength to their opponent. There isn't one, so that's it. So they just destabilize. Okay, and if Iran is at war, it's not. Finally, what we do is we check unstable states in particular areas. So we're looking at Central America and South America. There are 2 unstable states here. So let's look at Central America. Regional alignment is 4. it's less than 5, so there's a +1 on the dice. That's a D10 here. 10 goes to an 11. Oh, brilliant. So an 11 is remove the unstable state and place a level 1 rogue state. That's all we needed. So rogue state now starts doing their own things. Nasty things. Okay, South America. Stability is 4, so it's a +1 for that. Ah, we rolled another 10. Great. 2 rogue states. Wow. How's that going? How are we in the chat? And still chatting away very, very nicely there. It's going a lot better in the chat than it is actually on the board here. Right, so now we go to the President of the US Cabinet focus. So we start rolling on here. Let's get our flip chart. How are we doing on time? So this is an hour and a half. I might finish it in a bit. It's getting quite late here, and you're probably sounds like you're really bored of what I'm doing anyway. You're chatting amongst yourselves. So that was action. Cabinet focus. Okay. So each of these counters has a success rating, which is on a D6. So we start from the first one. So it's a success on 1 to 5 for press and public relations. So on a 1 to 5 on a D6, good things will happen for the effort. A 2, so that is a success. So what can we do? We can either +3 to public opinion, or +1 to public opinion, and +1 to media relations. Yeah, we like the media relations, so we'll put that one up, and the public opinion up by 1. Great. So priority 2 is address domestic crises. Success on a 1 to 4. 3, success. So -1 to domestic crises. That's it. So that goes down to 1. Good. Third is a 1 to 3 on cabinet effectiveness. No, failed. 4 and successful 1 to 3 is improve relations with Congress. We could do with a bit of that. No. 5 is Homeland Security, successful on a 1 or a 2. No. And finally, economy, success on a 1. Doesn't really matter here. No, fail, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so that's all we need to do there. There are no tensions counters here, so that's fine. So we have a scandal here which might affect things here. Anytime you place a new scandal counter or move a scandal counter, but we don't do that yet, do we? Scandals aren't dealt with yet, I don't believe. So something to do, but not yet. Yeah. Let me just check that. Doing the right thing. Okay, scandals. Scandals. legislative process, we're not there yet. So that's actually the next dot here. So we don't do that yet. Okay, so we've done the focus, and we're on to the next box, which is -1 for media relations. So they drop. 2 domestic actions, and then the legislative segment. I'm going to stop that on the box media. It's been going for an hour and a half, so I think we'll finish there for the moment, and we will come back to this. And yeah, how are we doing in the chat? Rogue, hello. You're just appearing just as we're finishing, so sorry about that. Quite a space hog it is. I did mention that at the start, actually. It's kind of an awkward shape here, long and thin. Well, not that thin, but certainly much longer than thin. And yeah, well, hopefully that started giving you some idea on the game. I believe it's on the P500 for a reprint. I think it all went out of print very quickly. I got this on the P500. Thought it was going to be a good idea, but anyway, so we've got most of the way through activation phase 1, and we'll keep going. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be back with more of this Mr. President. We'll see how we go. It's not going well though. Well, re-election's not doing too badly, because I've got media relations up to 5. I've got 5 on my public approval, so that's 10, and prestige 6, that's 16. That's pretty good, actually. That might almost be an automatic re-election at the moment. However, things are going horrible in Eastern Europe, and yeah, and Congress really hates me. Oh, and the Russians are absolutely throwing a hoolie as well. Still, oh yes, of course, and of course Russia and NATO are practically at the brink of nuclear war. So just a little thing. Yeah, if we get a crisis that happens on a card that shifts that, we are kind of dead. Hopefully, if it's a terrorism card, I can use my NSC staff to cancel it. But yeah, we're in real trouble over here. That's the priority here, is to try and reduce the tensions between Russia and NATO. Okie doke. Well, thanks everybody, and yeah, I will be back tomorrow evening with more on Mr. President, the 2020 scenario. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Don't worry about nuclear war. Well, I'm not, but it just means I lose the game. So, well, you know, I suppose I should worry about it. Okie doke. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.